Hey guys, I am Pado and I am a multi-seasonal challenger playing in the Oceanic region, and in this video today I will point out 5 different mistakes junglers make, especially in the lower elo tiers across all regions, and techniques to counteract these mistakes. Also, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube and Twitch channel linked down below so you can watch a lot more challenger guides and gameplay done by me. Just click on the link to get started. Thank you so much. Now let's get into the video. To be more specific, the mistakes I will be covering in this video consists of Number 1, delayed significant buys. Number 2, inefficient clearing. Number 3, rigid pathing. Number 4, inefficient taxing. And last but not least, number 5, singular ganking. All these points may seem a little bit overwhelming at first, but not to worry. I will explain them one by one, so by the end of this video, you have a condensed understanding of all these points I have mentioned. So let's get started on the first point, delayed significant buys. Picture yourself playing a conventional full clear jungle like Master Yi or Evelyn, and you take all 6 camps on your side, also known as straight line clearing, and a fight breaks out at mid. After trading positively in the 2v2, you start your recall, but as you channel it, your second cycle of Krugs come back up, so you walk and cycle your jungle all over again with your starting jungle item. This mistake alone can single-handedly cost you the game. The first reason is the difference in travel time to the Krugs on whether you recalled or not. A lot of low elo junglers think it is logical to farm the respawn Krugs before you recall, because who doesn't like having more gold on your first back? But the reason why it is so detrimental to your success in the jungle is because of early game tempo. Let's say you had gone and farmed your second cycle of Krugs and the enemy Kha'Zix throws out a gank on the opposite side of the map. Are you able to proactively trade something like a kill or counter jungle enemy camps with your single hunter's machete? The answer would be no, because you are looking to recall or take your own entire jungle for the second time in the first place. But imagine if you recalled immediately after the 2v2 at mid and bought yourself stronger items to help you clear jungle better, or maybe a boost of speed to help you move around the map faster. You would be 8 seconds late because of the recall channel time to your second Krugs, but you would make up for the delay with your faster jungle speed, and the more camps you take with your stronger items, the more time you would have saved. So with your newfound recalled items and your replenished HP and mana bar, you would definitely be able to respond to the Kha'Zix gank by maybe ganking bot or taking his camps vertically from you. This ensures you do not lose pressure on the map and helps you secure your stance in the early game, which in turn helps your laners snowball leads better and your opponents fear your presence regardless of whether you are visible on the map. With that being said, let's move on to point number 2, inefficient clearing. Clearing jungle camps inefficiently is one of the biggest mistakes low elo junglers tend to make, mainly because they have no idea they are clearing incorrectly in the first place. Clearing efficiently is compulsory if you would like to outclass your matchup in the jungle. Before I explain how to clear in the most efficient way possible, let's do some quick maths and talk about a few reasons why it is beneficial for you in the jungle. Number 1, travel time between your next destination or camp. If you kite your current jungle creep towards your next camp in your chosen jungle route, you would have saved a solid 2 to 3 seconds per camp. 2 to 3 seconds may not seem like much at first, but in the first 10 minutes, if we calculate 4 jungle cycles excluding scuttle crabs, it is approximately 20 camps. From moving to your next camp alone, you can save around 60 seconds of time and utilize that time towards another goal in the early game doing something else. To name a few examples, 1 minute of spare time can potentially score you approximately 20,000 units of movement, which in layman's terms means from blue nexus crystal to red. You could also counter 3 jungle camps with enough spare time to leave, solo Rift Herald or Dragon as it spawns, and lastly gank 2 different lanes or the same lane twice. The second benefit you would get from clearing efficiently is conservation of resources, aka HP and mana. Imagine dying in a well executed gank because of the lack of resources that could have been conserved from clear efficiency, or perhaps not being able to make any play at all because you're on the brink of death. Depending on whether your champion is ranged or melee, AP or AD, you can easily save yourself 500 to 1000 HP on your first clear cycle. I can't stress enough how important early game is and how significant having an optimal playstyle like clearing correctly in the early game, because you have to take into account there is always an early game but not a late game. And the later the game goes, the less control you will feel that you have. Alright, so now let's talk about how to efficiently kite your jungle camps properly. A lot of jungle guides tell you that the general rule is to auto twice and move back, but this is not entirely true and has more to do with whether your champion is ranged or melee. If your champion is ranged, the idea is to auto the jungle camp and move away from it until your auto attack comes back up, so you don't slow down your total amount of auto attacks. This is also known as auto spacing. For melee, the idea is to move back when the jungle camp's auto occurs when your auto attack is refreshing, so you don't waste time. So the faster your attack speed is, the more frequently you can move back. While kiting jungle monsters as a ranged champion is straightforward and it is no different to kiting an enemy moving towards you, melee characters have a little bit more complexity to it. The true way to practice getting good at kiting camps as melee is with raw practice to get a good feel for it. This is because different melee champions have a different number of movebacks per auto. Now let's move on to our third point, rigid pathing. As someone who has coached hundreds of junglers, this mistake could be seen even in Diamond Elo. Rigid pathing is the direct opposite of adaptive pathing. Let me clarify this term so you're on the same page. If you are clearing the same early game path 9 out of 10 games, you are clearing rigidly. Now this doesn't mean you shouldn't clear the same way every single game. It means you shouldn't clear the same way if the circumstances are to or against your favor. If you ever wondered what challenger junglers do different to the ones below them, this is most likely it. They are able to path accordingly to the game condition, so it helps them stay even at least, and almost always gets ahead in the early game. Let me base an example with my own Lee Sin games with 2 different parts and reasonings behind each one. Now before I do this, let me preface it by saying Lee Sin's conventional clear in patch 9.18 is to take the whole entire 3 camp at whichever side red buff is on, take wolf and blue and then look to gank. First game I am versing an Elise, which is notoriously known for diving losing bottom lanes under tower at level 3 before her first back. Knowing this game condition, I decided to clear unconventionally by taking red into wolves, into blue, into grump and rubber band towards the bottom lane to counter the dive and back up my AD carry and support. In the second game I am versing a Nocturne, and I knew since he was a full clear jungle I could also clear conventionally. However, Nocturne decided to gank my bottom lane at level 2, so I quickly adapted to this and stole his blue buff in exchange, thus making the trade on the map. Pathing is execution, and changes in pathing should always correlate with your reasoning and logic. If the game condition changes, you must also change the way you path in order to maintain yourself in the early game. Now let's move on to the next mistake low elo jungles make, inefficient taxing. The issue with the aftermath of a gank is the jungler deciding what to do with the minions in front of them. Take too many minions and your laner gets annoyed. Take too little and it may not have been worth your time to gank. The general rule of thumb is to take as many minions as possible if the kill was secured by your laner. However, try not to take the minion gold and only soak experience if you got the kill. This is to even out the amount of gold you and your laner got from the gank, so you both grow nicely. But what if your laner died during the gank and you are alone next to the enemy minions? Do you tax? Do you trim? How do you know it will crash under the tower? Many of these thoughts will occur. There is a technique that isn't coined yet, but I'll call it the minion mirror technique, and with practice you can master the art of taxing when your laner is dead. You must understand that minions come out of the nexus every 30 seconds simultaneously on both sides of the map. This means wherever the reinforcing minions are on your side, the same type and amount of minions are also on the mirrored position coming to meet in the middle on the other side. So if you want to know whether you can crash under the enemy turret or not, the first step is to take a look at your own minions behind your current wave and see how far away it is. After you have done that, check how close your current wave is to the enemy turret. On top of all of that, check the minion count of your minions versus theirs. The closer your current wave position is, the longer or shorter it will take to crash. The more or less the current minion count has to your allied minions, the faster or longer it will take to get your wave moving. The final step is to ask yourself this question. With the current minion count difference and wave position at hand, can I crash this wave before the mirrored reinforcing wave arrives at the enemy turret? If the answer is yes, start shoving and fast pushing the wave immediately. If the answer is no, think about trimming the wave so it pushes towards your laner but doesn't crash under the turret too early, because your turret could eat the minions while no one benefits from the minion death. If the reinforcing wave arrived already and the wave is pushing towards the enemy laner, unfortunately you have no choice but to force crash it, or your enemy laner can collect a nice fat slow pushed minion wave. So the least you can do is stop him from eating all of it. A more technical way to solve this problem is by understanding when the reinforcing minions arrive at the turret on both sides. In the current 9.18 patch, minions arrive at the outer turrets on every 22 and 52 second of every minute for mid lane, 30 and 60th second of every minute for side lanes. So look at the top right corner of your screen, check what second it is on, and whichever second is closest, that is the difference in time you have to crash the wave in front of you. The last point I'll be covering in this GameLeap video will be single ganking. The biggest misconception shared amongst junglers is the fact that you must win all sides of the map. The truth is, this is extremely hard to do and sometimes is literally impossible to execute because of game conditions like lack of gank synergy. So it is very important you know how to pick a side and pick your win condition. The single best advice I was given by a challenger jungler when I was a hardstock master player was, it is infinitely better to give the whole loaf of bread to one lane than breadcrumbs to 3. This is why camping exists. Rather than giving 300 gold leads to each of your laners, giving 900 to your bottom lane has a much higher probability of snowballing the game out of control. 300 gold to your laners will not guarantee snowballs, but 900 to one laner could. Not only that, the enemy laner will most likely get very annoyed and tilted, so that's also a bonus for your team. This is why picking a side to camp as your win condition before the early game comes to a close is essential to climbing elo rapidly. So next time you see a lane winning hard, don't try to help the one suffering, always opt to extend the pressure and lead your laners are already exerting onto your opponents. I'm creating dozens of videos on GameLeap as well, and I highly recommend that you sign up. GameLeap is the most comprehensive library of video guides available, all done by challenger players. If you're serious about winning and climbing, getting your GameLeap membership is the most efficient path to your desired rank. You'll find an in-depth course on how to play each role, as well as advanced guides on most champions. Click on the link here to sign up. See you on the inside.